second of 4 sons. Mom always made us feel loved and wanted. But it wasn't until my daughter, Sherry, became her first grandchild that I realized she had also always wanted a little girl. We lived in Maryland, and Mom loved sewing at the time, so when between visits, Mom spent a lot of time making cute little dresses for Sherry, and then during our visits with her, a good portion of Sherry's time was spent trying on new outfits and getting those over, and of course photographs were important in this family. Since then, there have been 9 more grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, and Mom loved all the same. We'll miss you, Mom.
Good morning. I'm Sherry, and Dad just stole my first item on my list. I have a lot of memories of Grandma, and one of them was the little fashion shows that she would always have me do when we first got there. I'd try on all the clothes I brought with me, and I'd try on all the clothes that she made for me, and she would, of course, take pictures, and that was great. She always made time for play also, and we used to play the Uncle Wiggily board game together, and various other card games and things. And I think one of my favorite times with her was always right before bedtime, because she would pull out a box of greeting card fronts that she'd kept, and we would make up stories about the picture that was on the front of the card. And it was just really special to have that time. And then I would make her read me the Pokey Little Puppy, because I liked how they went holy, holy, pumble, pumble, pumble down the hill. And I read that to my kid now, so we'll miss her.
I'm Bonnie, I'm Steve's wife, and I probably knew Elsie for fewer years than many of you here. But one thing I know about Elsie is that she was a very determined and courageous woman, and I had 2 occasions very recently on which I really felt this very much. So one was these 2 visits we had, I think in March and April. The timing is sort of blending together, but she was on the wound vac, and she was learning to get into bed with this wound vac, and she kept backing into the bed, and it was very painful. And so on the first visit, when I watched her do this, I asked if she could try getting into bed the front wing. And then on the second visit, it was time actually to leave, and she was about to get into bed, but she was sort of pausing. I left the room to give her a chance to do that, and she paused, and she's like, wait a minute, where is she? I want her to see me get into this bed. I learned how to do it. So she would not get into that bed until I came back into the room. And I was very proud of her, but it just made me realize she was so determined to learn to do this right, and so that it wouldn't give her so much pain. And then I just think of her as very courageous. So kind of on her final journey toward peace, 2 weeks prior to her death, we were down here again, and she was just home, meaning emeritus, having just gotten home from the hospital at about 30 minutes earlier, an hour earlier, and they had already been setting people up to eat dinner that night in a big room, and everybody was seated at a table, and she was in her room, but we sort of said, do you want to go eat with the other people? And she sort of said, yeah, I do. So it took a little bit of work, but we got her out into the dining room, and she had just gotten on top of the infection, so she was having a good day. And she was sort of up and down in this regard, and this was a very good day. So, but the best part was when we brought her out into that big room, and everybody was seated at their tables, and she sat down and she said, this is such a nice party, and she just felt like this was a party for her, like almost like it was dinner, but she was coming home from the hospital. And I just remember thinking how courageous she was, because she was smiling, and she had just gotten back from this hospital experience, which was pretty rough. And I actually found peace in the thought that she thought this was a party for her. So she smiled for that last photo with me and Steve. And then afterwards, she said, now, John, go take a picture of each table. Still determined, true to form. I'll miss Elsie.
Mom loved pictures, and she loved showing us pictures of when we were little. One of the things I was amazed at was instead of just having a diaper on us, she always had us dressed nice. And I realized that was a mother's love, especially when she said, "You know, Ben, you were throwing up all the time. Sometimes I'd change your outfit 4 times a day." Says, "Not only that, you were choking on everything you picked up." Says, "I'd let you out in the yard, and next thing I know, you'd be choking on a bunch of rocks." So I said, "Oh, I guess that means there was a day when I had rocks in my head." Some people say it still are. Another thing Mom loved to do is travel. She grew up and lived for all of her childhood all in one spot. She wanted us to be able to see as much of the world as she could. So on a low budget, we went camping everywhere, all up and down the eastern seaboard and inward into the mountains. And all of us had a love for travel, and we've carried that with us. John's been around most of the way around the world in Europe, Asia. I know Roger's been to England and traveling around. I've been in 17 countries. My kids share that. They've been in at least 5 countries. But that was just one of those loves that Mom passed on to us. She always got us toys that were kind of went along with our own interests. And it's kind of interesting to see how some of that turned out. I remember her buying me a Master Builder erector set. And now I'm a development engineer, senior development engineer for the company I work with, and I have inventions on 6 continents. Steve, I remember they got Steve and John electronic kits and various things like that. All of you have watched HD TV. Well, Steve's largely responsible for standardizing that. So it's kind of touched everybody around the world. John works on television switching equipment. You've probably seen the pictures switch and tumble and things like that. That's John's area of expertise, and he works on things that makes my head swim. Roger's assisted doctors in complex surgeries and putting people back together and saving lives and so forth. So Mom would see the interests that each of us had and try to encourage them and help us along as we went.